Today on BRStv, we're gonna show you how to DIY your own sump. Not only can this save you some money, but this way you can customize it to your tank's needs and the equipment you plan to run.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of pre-made sumps out there, but sometimes they just don't fit with, you know, the amount of equipment that you want or the specific equipment that you want. So a great option, if you've got a tank, you know, something like this little 20 long that we've got here that we're gonna be working with, you can always just custom build something. Okay, so one of the probably easiest things you can do is just go to the local hardware store and get some, you know, acrylic cut, simple acrylic plastic or even glass cut to make the baffles. You know, you want to get your measurements right and make sure that you've got enough of these made, but it's pretty simple, very cost effective. You're gonna spend maybe, what, $50 total for this, and then you'll have your sump ready to go.
Exactly, I've done it with glass and acrylic. Honestly, I would just go with acrylic at the time.
So much easier.
It's cheaper, there's less chance of cutting yourself, less chance of breaking it.
Yeah, and if you get your measurements just a little bit wrong, the acrylic's gonna be forgiving for you, right? You're gonna, you know, you can always fill up the spaces with silicone, but if it's a little bit too long, you can always sand one of those edges down.
An even easier way to make adjustments to your current sump or maybe set up your new one is with something like Aquamesh.
Sure, you know, we have some here, but the Aquamesh, the nice thing about it is it's porous, so it's great for making compartments within your sump, but it's not gonna do much for making baffles, right? Obviously, the water's just gonna go right through it. So if you're trying to get those different water levels, say to have a protein skimmer or something in there at a very specific height, this is gonna be a little bit more challenging for you. But you could cut this to make baffles, especially for a refugium where you're gonna have chaetomorpha in there or anything like that. So Aquamesh is a really great solution, and it's easy to work with.
All right, so we've shown you now a couple of different ways to make the baffles. We are gonna use a super unique product from Fiji Cube, which basically does all the work for you. This is a Fiji Cube sump baffle kit, and this one matches our 20-gallon tank here. Something really cool about the Fiji Cube kit is it also includes a filter sock holder.
Now, one thing you are going to need that we're not doing here just for time's sake, but you are going to want some acrylic solvent to glue these pieces in place so that they don't move on you ever. All right, so once you've got the filter sock holder all assembled, we're gonna put that in there and push it all the way back to as far as you can, to the back of the aquarium, to the side of the aquarium there, right? So now what we're gonna wanna do is silicone this in place, and we're gonna use some painter's tape to create some nice lines there. Now, I like a nice clean caulking line, so here we go. All right, so now that I've got the painter's tape in place, again, I wanna make sure this guy is secure where we want it, and we're just gonna run a bead of caulk all the way around all three sides of this. Be generous, you don't have to, you don't have to worry about overusing this stuff. You can always remove some of the caulking if you go overboard, and it's better to have a little bit too much than not enough and leave some gaps, okay? Okay, so once we've applied the bead of caulk all the way around that first baffle, you wanna make sure that you press it in and there's no gaps missing, anything like that. Once it looks good, you can actually go ahead and peel off the painter's tape. You should have a nice clean line, but it should hold just fine.
All right, so now that we have our drain section installed, we wanna make sure we maximize the amount of space that we have in the sump. So we're gonna move all the way to the return section and leave basically just enough room for our pump and then evaporation so our auto top off's not running all the time.
Yeah. Okay, so you got your tape set up. Again, we've made a little bit of a silicone dam back here for this caulking with this painter's tape, and now we're gonna run our bead up on this side. We've got our other side of tape up to make that line. All right, so we've got our bead of caulking in there. We can remove this line of tape. I'm gonna leave this one on the back side until this silicone cures. That way it's nice and in place. I don't pull anything out when I peel that tape off.
All right, so our next chamber is super important, whether using a kit like this or DIYing with acrylic panels. We need to make a bubble trap. The last thing you wanna do is spend all this time making this yourself and have the bubbles from chamber 1 go back up into your tank. This one's a bit of a two-person job, so I'm gonna help you out. Next up, we're gonna go ahead and add this adjustable baffle. This is gonna help you set the proper water height for your skimmer. So it might be a little bit tough to achieve with your DIY, custom cut acrylic. An option like this, super easy to implement. But what you wanna do if you're doing it yourself is just cut your acrylic to the height you want for your skimmer to start.
All right, so the next step is we're gonna add this divider between our protein skimmer compartment and our potential refugium. So this just gets silicone in place here. Important step, you wanna make sure that you leave plenty of room for your protein skimmer.
Exactly, and so we have our skimmer here. this would be a good step. We want to make sure this fits with enough room for maybe a potential upgrade, but we want, again, want to maximize space. So I think that looks pretty good.
That looks like a pretty good spot.
We have a fairly decent, a little bit smaller refugium section, but plenty of room from our skimmer. All right, so now we have our refugium section and protein skimmer section sectioned off.
Yeah, and as you can see, you know, anybody that's worked with silicone knows that silicone can be messy, it can get everywhere. And as you can see on Jason's side of the sump, where he decided to move some things around, we've got some smears over here on our caulking bead. So that's okay. The important thing to remember is that when you're all done and that silicone is nice and cured, you can go back in with a razor blade and just peel that stuff off really, really easily, clean up those seams.
Exactly, so hopefully we showed you how easy it is to DIY your own sump and make something custom for your tank that you can be proud of, that's gonna be understand for the life of the tank.